Welcome to the Full Body Faith podcast, a space where women of God are empowered in every aspect of their lives. I'm your host, Julie, seasoned entrepreneur, embodiment facilitator, and lover for good, inspiring conversations. In each episode, we explore the intersections between feminine living, entrepreneurship, and wellness. All that while walking with God. Join us on this journey of embodied faith as we open doors to new perspectives by sharing our stories and expertise. I pray that God speaks through me and that your heart receives exactly what is meant for her. Hello and welcome to this very first episode. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I have 2 mics set up and 2 cameras. I really wanted to make sure to get this message across. Of course, the thought of starting a podcast has been on my heart for a long time, but recently I really felt the calling to share about this shift that I'm living and this new journey I'm on via this medium, via podcasting. So welcome. On this podcast, we're going to discuss everything faith, business, femininity, connection to the body. And on this first episode, it felt very important right now to share my story about my spiritual journey, from trying everything under the sun to coming back to Christ, to God, and also sharing a little bit on my background as a child and all that great stuff. So thank you for tuning in, and we're gonna evolve throughout this podcast. The quality, everything will be in constant evolution, just like us as humans. So first things first, where did everything begin? Okay, I grew up in a little town in La Couche, near Montreal. And as a French Canadian person, by the way, we may do some podcasts in French too at some point. French Canadian people are not the most religious at all. In fact, yesterday I heard something like 1% of us are Christian. I didn't fact check this, but very little French Canadian people are religious or even spiritual. And so I grew up in one of those traditional French Canadian where being baptized as a baby is normal, being baptized as a baby is a tradition, but nothing really more than that. And then throughout my childhood, there was maybe a few Catholic classes in school before they removed it from my school and they removed religion from the schools. And for some reasons, my parents still brought me to do my first communion, again in the same church. And my whole childhood, I didn't resonate, or I didn't feel really the pull towards these kind of churches. I felt like, who is this old man? Just like, I don't understand anything he's saying. I couldn't relate. I didn't feel attracted to that, but I was always spiritually curious. So I remember even when studying for the first communion, I remember being interested, being curious about what I was learning and about this connection with God. And I always felt a connection to God. But then you know, time went by and I was never presented with anything else religious or spiritual over the course of my life. And then at 17 years old, I left my parents' house and I went to the big city, Montreal, to study and to create a better future for myself. Because just to give you a little background, nobody in my family like graduated from any form of superior studies, and not even high school for my parents. So I wanted to get an education. I wanted to build something for myself. And I remember around 17 or 18, actually, coming across The Secret and the Law of Attraction. And that was the first reconnection to spirituality, quote unquote, that I encountered back, after the First Communion, let's say. And it was it was a gateway for me. Honestly, I was hitting a rock bottom where I couldn't, pay my rent as a student because they removed my bursary. And I remember like watching this and applying the secrets and getting a promotion where I was working in retail. And so it became at the forefront of my life ever since. So that's been over 10 years. I'm about to turn 30 now in June. So over 12 years that this kind of methods, the law of attraction, has been in my life. And then a few years later, even though I was spiritual or inclined towards personal development, I was still at that time very much into alcohol, drugs, and that started in high school. But it's always been a way to connect to something greater or to disconnect to reality, and allowing spirits to come and take over. And that was not always pretty. In fact, like really my demons were coming out a lot with alcohol, and I was being very mean and aggressive to people. And at some point I had a DUI and I lost my license, and my upstairs neighbor was going to my gym. And so he was giving me a ride to the gym, and he was a pastor. So at a time where I was at an ultimate low, I was spending some time with a pastor, a Christian pastor. And I also had a friend who was going to a Christian church. So in that period of my life, around 19, I reconnected with God, with Jesus, with the Christian church. But that was 10 years ago, and it feels like a blur. I was in such a blur of my life. I was still consuming, and I was still in such a phase of my life that the message was not coming across. I can't say that I fully received Jesus in that moment at all, but there was this nudge, there was these angels around me pulling me into those beautiful spaces of worship. And of course, when this happens, the enemy will try to pull you in other directions. And in the new age, there's so many things out there. There's so many modalities, so many self-help books and stuff. And so I started going to yoga, and then one thing led to another. I mean, this was a catalyst for me. I'm not gonna lie. I stopped drinking, so I haven't been counting the days. I know a lot of people do, but I've been sober for over 5 years, certainly. And I just really immersed myself into everything, yoga, astrology, and I'm someone very intense. So as much as when I was addicted to alcohol and just like I wouldn't have one glass of wine. I would start one glass of wine, but then if people offered me shots, I would take the shots, right? I would when I would drink, I would get drunk.
And it was the same in spirituality. Like, I was offered a platter of all different kind of modalities, all different kind of things, and I was, yes, yes, give me more, and getting high on life is how I would call it. And that's how I replaced alcohol with other addictions. And I wouldn't say, that this is bad. I don't want to label any of these modalities as bad. And disclaimer, now that I'm getting a little more into that phase, if you are practicing any of those modalities, please don't feel offended. My goal with this video is just to talk about my own story and shed awareness and answer, questions, because people are wondering where I'm coming from right now. And yeah, just no offense. I love you. I'm not judging you. I want to stay connected with you and keep interacting if you would like. And yeah, that's that. So, as for that platter of modalities, it was a way for me to get high on life and get high on other substances too. There's been, yeah, astrology, yoga, Kundalini yoga was a big piece. Psychedelics, mushroom journeys, Reiki, energy healings. I even did my certifications for some of that. You name it, okay? Like, everything under the sun, I tried. Shamanic stuff, going into temazcals, cow ceremony, hape, okay? Everything. Because I always wanted a next fix. It never quite felt satisfying. It never really quenched my for wisdom, my thirst for connection, my thirst for God. And I invested thousands of dollars in trainings, teachers, energy healings, all kinds of stuff, retreats, events. And of course, there was some good to it. There's a lot of great stuff that I learned, and especially in my 9 months embodiment teacher training, which was the last piece of wisdom I received in the sphere. This connection to body is very important. This connection to self is very important. But in the new age, we get absorbed by self, and we really place ourselves as gods and goddesses. And this is it's a lot of responsibility, first of all, and it's not true. We are human beings, and so with embodiment, I guess it was the first step towards humbling myself and coming back down on earth, because of course, with a lot of things I was doing, I was not on earth. I was flying high. I was having out of body experiences, and I'm gonna talk more about all of that stuff maybe in some next episodes. But for now, I want to move on. I want to keep telling you my story and how things unfolded for me recently. So I did everything under the sun. I trained myself because in 2023, last year, I really realized that I wanted to become a mentor. I wanted to fully step in my service to others, because I loved, receiving mentorship, receiving all kinds of modalities. And so I wanted to offer my own version of that to the world, to women. And so I did this huge training, invested thousands of dollars in it. I sold my business. I had a food business at the time, Pure Prep, and I sold it. And I wanted to fully step into my purpose, quote unquote, into my mission, which I thought was being a mentor, an embodiment and business mentor. And I was going to leave to Greece and Europe to host my very first oversee a retreat, which to me, that was a pinnacle of, wow, like this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and this is like my dream. And it didn't go as planned. So I sold my business, and right after that, a few weeks or a few days after, we left to Greece to host a yoga and embodiment retreat, wellness retreat. And although it was a beautiful week, the group was amazing. My retreat co-host was an amazing soul, and everybody was very happy with this retreat. Everybody left happy. We created a community. I didn't feel satisfied or happy leading the retreat and afterwards. And that was a big, like, a big wall, you know? And I was with my man. He supported me throughout this retreat. And he's never been open to the spiritual adventures that I was doing. He was never really open to coming to those events I was attending or even hosting. And he's born and raised in a Christian Orthodox home, but they're not like super practicing of the religion at all. But his uncle used to paint in those Orthodox churches in Montreal, and he feels like a love for that and nostalgia for that. His uncle passed away. And so when we arrived in Greece, he wanted to go to church. And I was like, dang, yeah, I'm always open. In the New Age, it's like you're open to everything, right? Like Jesus, an ascended master, and everything under the sun works. So of course, like I can go to church. I love any spiritual experiences. But why? I was resistant to it because, of course, the enemy doesn't want you. I was like, why would we go to church? Like, if you never want to go to church in Montreal, what's different not, you know? But I was like, okay, cute. Like, he likes it because it reminds him of his childhood and whatnot. So we go to church, and he's not Greek, by the way. He's Egyptian, okay? Because a lot of people think he's Greek. We go to church. We don't understand anything. It's in Greek, okay? None of us speaks Greek. Or even my co-host, she came with us because it was right before the retreat. She speaks some Greek, but she didn't even understand because it's some old ancient Greek, right? That the priest is reciting. So I didn't understand anything, and I was so resistant, and I was like, why would you pull me out of the place so early on a Sunday morning? Like, come on. And so it stays like that. We do the retreat, now going back to the retreat, and the whole time I'm not happy. I'm there, I'm in heaven. And I'm doing my mission, my purpose, what I wanted to be doing for so long. And it still doesn't feel right. It still doesn't feel right. And so we leave, and the retreat is done. And I thought that I would plan the next retreat. I thought I would launch the next thing. I thought I would be on fire. There's nothing left to stop me. Let's do this. I'm there, you know? But it didn't go as planned. I didn't feel that inspired. I needed some time to integrate, right? As we always say, we always need so much time to integrate after everything we do in the New Age. And I just didn't feel fulfilled, and I didn't really know what I wanted to put out there in the world. And I did create something, or basically I took something I created in the past and I reiterated it, and I tried launching that. And as I was launching that, the launch was not okay. Nobody was excited about it, not even myself. But I put a lot of time and hours like creating it, creating the sales page and doing master classes and stuff. And at the same time as I was doing that, my man threw a curveball in my face, and he says, let's redo TerraFlow's website. So TerraFlow is our family business. We sell pontoon docks. Can talk about that another time. But I was not putting much energy into that because I was putting it into Pure Prep prior. And then now I was trying to launch my thing, my mentorship. And of course, I was always helping him with TerraFlow, but I wasn't devoting like much time and energy into it. And so he tells me to launch that, to redo the website. And I was so frustrated because I was like, I just spent so much time redoing my website and like all that stuff to launch, and now you want this to be done like yesterday. And so in the end, I ended up focusing more on TerraFlow, which was a total blessing. And we'll get back to that. But instead of like just launching stuff when I wasn't sure anymore of what I wanted to share with the world, how I wanted to mentor people, because all of a sudden my faith was disrupted. Like I got back to square one. I was confused. And I focused on TerraFlow. We were 3 months in Europe and in Greece, okay? And in Greece, we went to church, then we did the retreat, then we went to Crete, and we went back to church. Same thing. I was like, nah, whatever. I don't understand anything. And so now we keep living our life. The church he doesn't ask me to go back, and I don't. And one day we're supposed to go on a boat ride, okay? So if you're still here, thank you. Pay attention. Now we're getting into the juice, okay? This is the story. So we're supposed to go on a boat ride, and it's kind of cloudy. So I say, you know what? Let's not spend money on a boat today, because it might as well do something else when it's a little cloudy, like a hike, something like that. So I tell my man, I say, look for a hike nearby. We're near Hania. I'm like, it's already getting late, so somewhere close, can just go on a nice hike. So he found this place called Cattolico Monastery. And on Google, it had great Google reviews with hiking photos, and it looks amazing. So we take a car, we go there. I'm wearing my little sports bra and my little booty shorts. And we arrive there, and there's somebody, a guardian at the door, and he asked us for €3 each to get in. And he also asked me if I have something to cover up because it's a monastery. So I said, oops, I did not know that it's a monastery. You know, those times when churches, like, I dressed modestly. I'm aware that I don't want to disrespect you. I'm sorry. Yes, actually, I have a golden tunic in the car. So super holy vibes. So I cover up, and he says you only need to cover up to go through the monastery, and then you can take it off and do the hike. Because it's very hot. It's like the desert kind of. So beautiful, like, garden monastery. We just walked through it to go to the hike. And as you open the gates, this beautiful, stunning view, it's mind-blowing. One of the most beautiful hikes I've done. There's goats everywhere. You're overlooking the sea. You're in the mountains. It's gorgeous. We keep walking, and it's a challenging hike. There's a lot of little caves with little altars with offerings for Jesus and saints, and it's just mystical. And you can feel that on that land, some history happened. Like, it's a land that is potent, that has some history, like some very important stuff happened on that land. So we go to that hike, and at the bottom, we go for a swim. It's beautiful. You're in the sea, and it's crystal clear. It's rocks. Anyways, gorgeous. We go back up. I'm fully Okay, my heart is open, my body is open. I broke a little sweat. I swam like I'm in the perfect space to receive. And we go to the monastery because, like, okay, we made it on time and let's go now before we head back. So now we stop at the actual monastery, and I thought that, of course, it was just gonna be like visiting a church or something like that. But no. We go in, and these monks, first of all, monks, as you probably know, are devoting their whole life to God, devoting their whole life to service, to prayers, to chanting, to reading the Bible in that case. And so we go there, and the energy in the monastery is very palpable. They're burning incense, like it's a whole vibe, okay? And we sit down. I close my eyes in meditation, and I received this. Although it was in Greek, I still didn't understand anything. But whoa, I felt something supernatural. I felt something as if I was on a psychedelic journey, okay? I felt something I felt in the new age, but that I never felt in a Christian content before, or even better. You know, it felt like another level of peace. It felt really, really good. And then we leave, and it stays like that. You know, I don't think about it that much. We just move on with our life again. And then my man's parents were coming to meet us over there. So they spent the last month with us, and we had a chance to bring them back to all our favorite places in Crete. And of course, that hike and that monastery was on our top list. So we were very excited to bring them back. They're 65 years old. They did that crazy hike. Wow. It was definitely some supernatural powers to them, because, whoa, that was impressive. Okay. You have to like do some rock climbings at some points. And I was excited to go back to the monastery and experience that service again, because I remembered how fun it was. So we get back to the monastery, and that was at the time last fall where we changed the time, right? We do that in Greece too. We change the time, and it gets dark earlier. So we arrive at the monastery at the same time as the previous time. But the monk is like headed out, and he's like, sorry, it's over. The service is done because of the time change. I was so sad, okay? I had tears coming to my eyes. And he could feel that, he could see that. So he told me, it's okay, you can still go, you know? And I'm getting back into that mood. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go, but it's not the same. It's not what I want. Right? Because I was addicted to that external stimulation, to those people, to those ceremonies, to those things, right, outside of me to provide me with that peace. And so I went in, and it was not the same experience. It was fully dark. It was silent, and there was nobody. It was just me in that monastery. And I was like, okay, cool. It's like, this is not what I wanted. And then I sit there again, and I close my eyes, just like I did the first time. And that's when I received Jesus. But I didn't know it was Jesus, really, at that time. It was just this presence that told me, you don't need any of that. You don't need the monastery, you don't need the monks, you don't need... All you need is this connection to me. And I was like, huh, wow, okay, interesting. And we go on. I meet the family again, and I tell them about my experience, but I don't analyze it. I just keep going. And it was a journey and a half to be with my in-laws for an entire month. They have very much like traditional values, and they honestly raised me. They honestly taught me so much, and I was very well supported as I received Jesus. And so we go and we keep going, and we were leaving Crete. And so I knew that I wouldn't be able to enjoy the monks again. And it was time to leave Crete. So we move on and go back to Athens. In Athens, we visited some churches again, and we even met these people, which one of them speaks Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus, and we had such a great time with these people, these random men we met. And then we go to Barcelona for 3 nights, and out of those 3 days, we really wanted to visit the Sagrada Familia, which is a famous church over there, because not because I found Jesus, just because it's a tourist attraction in Europe. If you've been in Europe, you know that visiting churches is just like a thing to do, right? So we go to Sagrada Familia, but it's like we don't like touristic stuff that much, okay? We don't like big lineups. You don't like to spend like 40 euros to visit a place where it's crowded with a bunch of people. So we say, you know what? Tomorrow morning is the mass, the Sunday mass, and we can go for free apparently. So we arrive there. There's a huge lineup, the whole street filled with people. And so we couldn't attend the international mass. But we still were persistent, right? We couldn't get in, but we were looking, and we see in the back of Sagrada Familia that there is the local mass, like there is the Catalan mass where locals go, and there's like almost nobody. Like it's not crowded, there's no lineups, there's just a few people. So we're like, okay, perfect. We're not gonna understand anything, but at that point, I'm used to going to churches and not understanding anything. And Catalan is a mix of French and Spanish, which I both speak. So I'm like, okay, should be fine, whatever. So we go there, and we're like 4, the family, right? And out of all of us and a bunch of people that are in the church, the ministry person asked me to read something in front of the crowd, like to read something at the altar. Me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. They asked me to read it in French, so I was like, okay, great. And then we go on, and this church is like super powerful energetically as well. And on that weekend, I decided that I wanted to have a sip of red wine. Funny enough, because I never would take sips of wine since I stopped drinking alcohol. So I took a sip because I was like, we're in Barcelona. The parents were ordering red wine, a bottle at the table, and like right after this Sagrada Familia journey, I'm there drinking a sip of red wine, like biblically, this is pretty, like, I'm telling you all those synchronicities now that I'm piecing it together, but at the time I was not realizing it. And then we move on, we go to our next destination, Madeira, for 2 weeks, which is a small island in Portugal that one of my best friends live. So we're there, they do a wine tasting, and that day I said, okay, let me try the wines that they're trying, but Madeira wine is sweet, and it's very high in alcohol. It's like 20%. So although I only took 5 small sips, I felt tipsy, okay? And I didn't like it at all. I felt anxious. I felt no good. And we walk in Madeira, and we see the church. And the church, there's service on a Friday night, which like I didn't know it was a thing, right? I was always thinking of Sunday service, but here we are. And my man always wants to go to churches and stuff and get communion. Like, to get communion for him, it's like, it's fun. And I'm like so annoyed at that time. And he's like, oh, it's gonna be my third European country getting the communion. And he's super excited. And I went in the church and I'm like, no, no, no. I felt so much shame. I had like a Mary Magdalene moment. And I was like, I'm not worthy of this. Like, I left the church. That was very intense. And then in this pilgrimage that I now call, Christmas was coming. And so in Madeira, they make a big deal out of Christmas. There was Christmas decorations everywhere, but not only the commercial kinds. There was also human size Jesus and the nativity scene, the birth of Jesus was everywhere. Even when you go to the restaurant, there's like the little versions. And in the towns, there's the huge version, like taller than me. So we're just like immersed in this Christian environment. And also, one day we are at the beach and we connect with a family. They're so inspiring. They're like a family of, they have 4 children and they sold everything they owned in the States, and they're just traveling and homeschooling their kids. And I'm like, wow, you know, like this is showing me that it's possible to just like have kids and travel like that. It's inspiring me. Like my ovaries are like feeling it, you know? And so I connect with them on socials, and I realize that they're like on Christians, that they preach on their platform and they really follow the path of God. And that was just okay. I keep moving on with my life. I'm not like, oh my God, I need to go Christian or I need to follow Jesus. Like, I'm just living all that without realizing it. And then we go to Lisbon as a last stop, and of course, we visit a bunch of churches over there too. And we go back to Montreal. This is the end of my pilgrimage. So what happened? Well, I didn't realize. I didn't realize that it was a pilgrimage until a few weeks ago. But when we came back, it was holidays, and I was already not a fan of Netflix and watching like the Matrix form of entertainment. But, you know, coming back, it's the winter, like in the winter, I'll have a tendency to maybe start a show or something. But I'm looking on Netflix, and of course, the only thing I want to watch is The Chosen, which is Jesus's TV show. And if you haven't watched it, regardless of where you're at in your faith, I highly recommend. After 2 episodes of that show, I look at my man and I'm like, I need a Bible. And he's like, well, relax there. I'll buy it for you next week or something. I'm like, no. You don't understand. Like, I need a Bible. I need it now. Like, I'm gonna order it on Amazon right now. I don't need your permission. I'm just letting you know. I need a Bible right now. So I order it, and I binge watched that show, the 3 seasons of that show, and wow, you know, it's just been a journey since. Like, we came back to Montreal and so much changed. So much changed from this pilgrimage and from receiving Jesus in our home. And my man was super excited to tell his grandma about this because she loves Jesus. And we go to her house and she gives him a tiny Bible. It's right here. It's so tiny. This is mine, the mother of Bibles. And ever since, like, we've been reading the Bible. I've been doing Bible studies. I've been attending church, a Christian church, which is very, very spirit filled. And yesterday I even felt, that this feeling, this almost like psychedelic, like bliss and peace and like woe that I experienced in the monastery in Crete. I have experienced that yesterday at Good Friday in my church, and really it just felt like the perfect timing on this Holy Saturday, uh, right before Easter, to record this video. I don't know when it will be out, but whenever you're listening to this, just know that if you're thirsty for wisdom, if you're thirsty for spiritual connection, if you're thirsty to connect to God, to yourself, in a way that is satisfying, in a way that will quench your thirst, just know that Jesus is the way. And it's not a way, it's the way. And he is the way. Like, I tried everything under the sun, but the Son of God is all I need. My friends are witnessing it. Even my friend in Madeira, whom we visited, I told her this story recently, and she told me, like, I noticed a shift when you came to Madeira. I didn't know what it was, but she felt so grounded, and like there was something big that happened. And even when I speak with people recently who have witnessed me throughout my spiritual journey, like, they say, wow, you really sound at peace. And I can truly say I feel peace, and I feel like I'm not alone anymore. I feel like I can rely on God. I can truly rely on something greater than me, not a bunch of deities or crystals or this or that. Like, no, I just go straight to the source. I don't need to go to Mother Nature, universe. These things are all great, but they are creation from the creator. And I just go straight to the creator. I talk straight to him. He listens. He listens. My prayers are answered. And I cannot ask for anything better. Since Jesus came in our life, we never fight. My men and I, we have such a peaceful relationship as well. Ever since we met, I've always tried inviting him into those spiritual activities or to meditate in the morning, because I love silence in the morning. I always did. Like, no, I didn't, but since my spiritual journey, like, the mornings are sacred to me. And he never wanted to do any of that stuff. And now, finally, when we get up, he reads his Bible. And we can have peace and silence, and we can, and I pray for us. That's all I do. I don't need 1,000 practices. I don't need 1,000 books. I just need to pray straight to God and to read my Bible. That's all I need. And everything is in there. When I wonder, when I had a question, I just look into what the Bible says and I get answers. And these answers are satisfying. And Jesus said it, and I'm gonna paraphrase it because I don't know verses by heart. Okay, I'm not there yet. But he said something around the lines that those that drink this water will always be thirsty, but those that drink the water I give them will never be thirsty again. And that's really how I feel. TerraFlow is booming. It's been growing exponentially. Just to give you an idea, we are now on March 30th, almost at the same revenues that we had for the entire 2023. And 2023 was a successful year. It was not like exactly what we wanted, but it was more than what the average person generates, let's say. For some people, anyways, I'm not gonna disclose numbers because it's a family business, but we now reached that point. And last year, at that time, we had only 2 units sold. Last year at that time, we had like 15,000 in revenues. Like, our price point was lower. The friction to get sales was more difficult. Everything was more difficult. And ever since Jesus came in our life, the abundance, the prosperity is there too. Like, not only there's peace and there's love and there's harmony, and I was able to be there for my loved ones, for my family members that have cancer right now, including my mother. I was able to go to the hospital and be by their sides and feel so much strength and peace, even better than when I was microdosing mushrooms. Like, I remember years ago being there for my mom and another diagnosis, and I was using mushrooms as a way to cope with that, and as an external source of peace, and it helped. Like, all those things work, don't get me wrong, but this connection to Jesus is just on another level, and I really, really wish that you can experience it for yourself. We're gonna be walking this walk together. I am in no way a theologist yet. Maybe one day, maybe not. As I told you, I'm very intense, so I love to go deep when I'm into something. So stay tuned. I'm taking you on this journey, on this reconnection to Christ. And yeah, it feels very exciting to take you with me as we apply those beautiful teachings from the word of God, and apply that to our relationships, our businesses, our community, really. And so, that being said, the Embodied Collective will have a makeover over the next few days. I'm actually going back to a monastery, but this time for a retreat for 2 days in silence this week in Quebec. And I'm going to really take this moment to pray and be guided by God for this redirection of my service. But of course, connection to the body is important as women, and allowing all that to be guided for the greatest good. Hey, I cannot speak anymore. Oh yeah. Allowing this container, this community to be beneficial, not only for the woman inside, but also for the greatest good of all beings. And in the name of Jesus, I really, really want to honor him with everything I do. And that's what's coming. So if you want to join us, right now it's only $33 a month. And just know that it's inspired by Jesus from now on, and it's already been actually for the past 2 or 3 months, but now it will become even more. So if that's something that sparks an interest in you, if you want to have sisters on this walk with God, you're super welcome to join us. Thank you so much for listening to my testimony, for listening to my story. It's really an honor to share it with you, and I would love to hear about yours. I would love to connect with you on socials. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at purelyjulie or on TikTok. Yeah, stay tuned for the next episodes. I love you.